Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Legacy Leaders. Today, I'm with Yocheved Belsky. I do that right?
You did that great.
Outstanding. She is with Clear Square Group, and we've got a lot of things to talk about today. Mainly, we're going to talk about her business, what it does to help other people in the community, and talk about leadership. I think that's one of the qualities that Yocheved brings to the world is a really strong leadership quality. But before we get into all that, I'm going to turn the microphone and the camera over to her so she can introduce herself, tell us a little bit about what she does, how well she does it, and then we'll start talking about what it's like to be a business leader in Northeast Ohio. So, the camera and the microphone are yours. Introduce yourself. Tell us your story.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Scott. I'm glad that we met. We love LinkedIn, don't we? I think
Yeah.
it expands everybody's network of meeting other professionals and networking that way. So glad to meet another person in Ohio. My name is Yocheved Belsky. I currently run Clear Square Group, which is the parent company. In Clear Square Group, we work with organizations to access grant funding. We work with some private foundation funding for them, but we mainly work with government funds. And and then we have another division, which is really our school services division. We work with schools through M Squared Learning, and we contract with school districts to provide specialized supplemental services in mostly non-public schools. And people look at me and they're like, what is the connection between those two things, right? And it's a story how one involved in the other, and you, from the way I said it, it's not even the order that it came into fruition. But the concept that drives and the core of what we do at our companies of both organizations is really bringing the strategy and clarity in a very complex space. So I like to just yeah. So it's, you talk about government funds or trying to be eligible for any type of funding that's out there for organization, whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit, and they're trying to access what the funding is like and all the compliance that goes with it, understanding the nuances, is really taking the complexity and getting the clarity in it to make it work for that organization. And we do the same thing similar for an M Square Learning, where we deal with the districts and we deal with the government requirements, which thank God we're really good at. And at the same time, understanding the needs of the schools when it comes to the academics and maximizing the funding, and then making sure that they're getting what they need in the way that they need it, which is an allowable way. And taking that complexity, going through the muddy waters, and getting the clarity in that is what we bring in both organizations.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. A lot. And I appreciate you going through it because this is an interesting topic, right? And eventually we're going to get to all the different things that you bring to the table. But I want to just core this down because I think what you did is a really nice job of explaining. There is such a complex world that you live in, but all what you're capable of doing is taking all these complexities, narrowing it down, filtering out all the crap that nobody needs to worry about, and bringing clarity to, all right, here's your strategy, and here's what our clear direction step by step is to get you the funding you need to fulfill what you're trying to get done. Seems a very simple way of explaining what you just did. But what I like about it is that's the purpose of what you do. That's the service and value that you provide is you're taking this massive space with all these different rules, regulations, and you're filtering it through your knowledge and experience and saying, here are the points we need to hit. This is exactly what we need to be doing. And here there are, then is building a strategy that says exactly what we need to do moving forward. And I'm very happy to connect you to people I've already known and met, and hopefully that works out really well. But what is it that you're looking for? Like, who is somebody that is a really good client or somebody that you would want to be connected to?
Thank you for that, Scott. So I want to add on is that there are obviously other organizations that do similar work that we do. And I don't even like to use the word competitors because I don't look at it that we have competitors. We are very unique in the work that we do, and the way and the perspective that we bring it. So there are many other people and there are other organizations and big ones and smaller ones that do similar work. And I network with them as well. And I know the unique perspective that we bring to the table is myself and others on my team, we've sat at different sides of the table. So when we talk about organization, I've led a nonprofit. When we talk about dealing with government funds, I actually was a government employee. I was a superintendent of a public charter school in the inner city of Cleveland for quite some time, for over a decade, and dealt with government on that side as well. So we
Hmm.
come with, but at the same time, we now run a business, right? So coming in with those different perspectives really make us unique and be able to connect with our clients and the schools and the organizations that we work with.
Makes a big sense, or makes sense because the big connection is been there, done that. I know what side of the table I sit on now, but I understand and am empathetic to the side of the table I used to sit on, and now I can take my experiences and my views and put it into action. And that's how you can clearly put together a nice strategy for people because you know exactly what they need to do to get to the next step, right? And that I think is one of the most important things that any business can learn through our conversation is no matter what you're doing, take one step closer to your ultimate goal and move yourself through that. And that strategy that you're building for your client is what's making the biggest difference. What
Yeah.
is a good client for you? Like if somebody was watching this, they're like, oh my God, I know somebody who's like that or somebody that fits that role. What is it that you're looking for as far as a connection?
So here's what I'm going to put in a plug for, and
Sure.
I'm going to take this to a third rung, and that is it's not launched yet, but I'm launching soon my website Yocheved.pro, and through there I will be providing some of the leadership coaching and speaking that I've been doing ad hoc with organizations in a more I would say in a more clear offering for people that don't already know what I already do. And dealing with organizations in let's say in the nonprofit space,
Okay.
ultimately I have relationships with many executive directors, leaders of organizations and schools and even social services organizations. And recognizing when we have conversations about different projects that we're working on, ultimately always every time without fail always gets involved in something else that's going on in an organization,
Mm.
and realizing that every leader still needs a leader, and creating and being that person for somebody else is something that on a more for more people on a consistent basis is where my goal is now for 2025. And we all know organizations that are like, oh great, you work with funding, I'm going to connect somebody to try to help them get funding. So I just want to give a little synopsis. And by the way, you could go to clearscoregroup.com. It has all the information in terms of our grant process and the work that we do. There's billions of dollars given out in grant funding. It's
Yeah.
not it's not an overnight lottery win. It's a lot of effort, time, focus, and investment in terms of being able to be in it for the long game. And so whenever I have organizations, oh, I heard you've worked with this organization, can you help me with this? And I'm like, yeah, but what's your long-term goal, right? If you think you're just going to
Mhm.
do one or two shots and you think you're going to get your $500,000 to help you with your budget this year or your project this year, it's not really the way it goes. Not saying that it can't happen, but it's not really the way it goes. I'm a very realist when it comes to working with organizations that way. So I'm sure there'll be listeners who'll be like, oh wow, she worked with grants. Oh, I know my local organization this or my local organization that. So I'm glad. I speak, you could book directly on my website. I love speaking with organizations and helping them get an inkling in
Yeah.
terms of what's actually going on in there. And when it comes to M Squared Learning, we interestingly enough, we mostly grow by schools that contact us or people that we know that they're dealing with schools that need help in accessing and maximizing the funding. And right now, it's mostly in the non-public space because they work with the districts to get to access that funding. But for by and large, I think your listeners, if we lean in to the leadership in terms of the work that I do in leadership and the team building that we focus on, and I've spoken to quite a few crowds in terms of
Mm.
focus always being whether it's an organization that's doing it for themselves or for a leader that's bringing in just for team building for themselves, for each person in growth and development. To me, it's the same common denominator that we said earlier, taking the complexity of what you're dealing with and getting that clarity. So
Mhm.
whether that's an organization trying to get the getting the complexity, the clarity out of the complexity, and then ultimately the strategy, and effective implementation in a grant, or whether that's dealing with government funds for a school, whether
Mm.
that's a leader in an organization that wants to get clarity in terms of leading what's going on in their organization, the different projects that are happening, and getting, okay, how am I staying focused? What are we doing to get the best strategy? And it's that's the common denominator, is to, seeing the trees from the forest and
Yeah.
being able to help, being that support for other organizations and leaders and executives.
I love the analogy of the see the forest through the trees because there's countless times where people are so embedded in the forest and they don't realize that they're surrounded by so many different trees that they can't focus on one. And what we want to do as leaders is really take a focus and get hyper identified towards what exactly needs to be done and what is our long term, as you said, and build a pathway to get there. I think we spend so much time in the minutia that we don't spend enough time on the strategy part, and that's what I think is valuable about what you do because you're bringing attention to the bigger picture and you're allowing people to get out of the weeds and into the vision for what's on the horizon so many years down the road. So I commend you for that. That's cool stuff, right? Um, when we talk about building this business that you've built and how you've gotten to the point where you are right now, what would you say or would you offer up as a challenge that you've known about and been able to work with that other people might be able to be empathetic to and realize, okay, there's somebody who's been through this and is kind of carved their path into that. How can I follow in those footsteps in my own challenges? So, what's one of the bigger challenges that you face that you think would be worthwhile for people to really understand? Salancha, by the way.
Thank you. So one of the struggles when I started my own business was getting my own clarity. I knew what I
Mm,
wanted to do, and then you go online, which is just like going into a forest, literally. And
yeah,
everybody's posting the best book that they read, the best method of the way to do business. And I'm a very curious learner and I love learning.
yeah,
So I was reading, I was listening, and after a while, I was like, what in the world is going on? No one's talking to what I need. And after a lot of time, a lot of hard work, and I will say even investment in coaches and mentors and trying to help me help myself, right? I realized that it's not about what someone else thinks. And when, now already
mhm,
there's the jokes, wake up at 4 a.m., go to the gym and have 4 glasses of water and do this and do that. And then you get your millions by 9 a.m., right? So now it's already become the joke. But I remember at one point I was interviewing a lot of business coaches for myself. And at one point, and I wish I remembered her name, but I don't remember what her name was. She said to me straight up, she said, Yocheved, you're way too far along in managing business. I'm not a good coach for you. But if you ever want to chat, you could call me back. And I told her, I said, thank you. I will not call you back because I don't want to waste your time. But thank you for that
yeah,
honesty. But that's when I really realized that so much of what was coming out was for new companies, were for people that were also new to business, trying to still
mhm,
understand their method of leading and doing business when I really had that already. And I think everybody has to understand when they're going into business, whether they're an entrepreneur in their own business or whether they're working for somebody else, everyone's journey is unique. Just like we understand everybody's life is unique, everybody's
mhm,
career, their business journey is really unique. And taking someone else's playbook for yourself can leave you with frustration. So taking parts of other people's playbook and being applying it to yourself, take the best parts of those people's playbook and apply that to yourself and recognize what really is it that's going to work for you. And
yeah.
it took me, if that's one thing that my time and energy and investment can help someone else, that I know, that I know it was worthwhile. It's an investment for somebody else. But if someone's stuck with a coach, or someone's stuck in a process, or someone's stuck reading a book because they were told that this is the best one that's going to change their life, stop it. Stop reading. Take a look in the mirror. Say, what is it that you really want to do? And then find someone or something, or do whatever it is that's going to help you on your journey. Because what
Yeah.
works for one person is not going to work for everybody. It actually comes to mind. I remember someone else was like putting out this like course that they were going to do about dealing with schools. And I'm like, oh, let's hear. Maybe someone has some good insight in dealing with schools. I'll go listen. I literally paid and I
Ooh.
listened to it and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And the woman, and then I called the woman afterwards and she was like, yeah, I'll give you a refund. I don't think it was for you. So I again, all
Nothing
good.
wrong with that.
Yeah, all good with that. But then it was like it's a waste of my time, right? But recognizing, what's out there and how it really relates to you, and is it really for where you
Yeah.
are in your space and at your level?
You bring up a solid point. I mean, one of the things that because I'm tying this back to what you said earlier. Every leader needs a leader. Everybody has to be a constant learner and a continuous learner. That way you continue to grow and develop and become better than you were, whatever period you want to relate yourself to. And to put yourself into a cookie cutter program or a cookie cutter process or only read this book and that's your whole life, I think you're missing out on the opportunity to be one, broaden your horizons and perspectives. I think you're limiting yourself in opportunities to see your own blind spots. And I think if you really apply yourself to being a better person, you're going to listen to as many resources as you can and filter into your world the ones that align and get rid of the ones that don't align at all. And that's what I think makes what you do and what I do very interesting is we're teaching people to be better leaders. We're teaching people to make better decisions. And it's not because they follow this cookie cutter, it's because we listen through empathy and we address things with emotion to get behind the need of what they're getting to and ultimately build a really good program because it's something they can emotionally be tied into. And that's what I think is the big difference between whether it's consultancy or coaches, mentors, however you want to look at it, is if there's not an emotional connection, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to really drive a passionate push forward. You're just missing it. And I'm saying that, yes, I'm a business coach. I want people to say, um, I want people to work with me because I offer so many great things, but I also don't want to work with somebody that I'm not going to be connected to because then neither one of us are going to be happy, right? So your point is valid, and I love it that you're open about it because more people need to be open about that. I know I can help everybody, but I'm not for everybody. And I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of people that want my help, but they're not going to align to what I want to do to try to teach them because they're just mentally not there yet, right? So when we talk about leadership, that's a huge piece, and I'm glad you bring that up because people really need to pay attention to how they lead and how they want to be led. Like you said, even leaders need a leader. You need to figure out how your style translates to others. So good point of conversation.
Yeah.
You've learned a lot. Go ahead.
If I could say one thing to wrap to just to give a nugget to listeners would be we're giving you the permission to find yourself and not to conform to somebody else's style. Meaning, with Scott, what you just mentioned, listening to all the stuff and learning all the stuff. No, I didn't have that clarity that I had the permission to like not do or listen or read that whole book or take that whole course or actually cut the contract with that coach because it really wasn't working for me anymore. Understand?
Yeah,
So here's where I want to give that permission based on what we said is that if anyone feels that they're stuck. Now, I'm not saying that I don't think it's a good idea that people should go from resource to resource to resource. I think that won't, there's something then with that leader, they need to do an introspection and see what's going on with them and get clarity in terms of what they need. But getting that concept of, okay, take it in and then like filter it out. What are you going
yeah.
to hold on to help you to help find that leader to help you be the best leader that you could be?
That's a good point because one, I think one of the bigger challenges that we both face, right, and the people we're trying to help is the idea, the concept, the ego-driven mentality of humility, right? You need to be unbelievably humble to be a successful leader. And I'm not saying you need to kowtow to your team. What I'm saying is you need to be humble in recognizing these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and how do I build a better system for myself to be a better leader that represents my personality and who I am. There, I begin to start attracting people because of who I am and the leader that I've become, not necessarily because I say what somebody told me to say, right? You've got to find your own voice and have that permission to do the things that you need to do to become better. And there's a lot of different things and sayings that we have within the world of coaching, but it's all about you need to be the person in order to do the things that will get you the results that you want. And if you're not those two things, if you can't be the person and do the things necessary, you're never going to get what you want. So it's a coach or a leader's job to put people in a perspective and a situation so they can see it for themselves and not be told what to do. So thank you for that. That's really good stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember the quote exactly, but from Atomic Habits, that quote of every day, everything that you do is gonna, every action you take is going to be the person that you're going to become.
Yeah.
And so every action you take is a person you're going to become, meaning it's a culmination. So if you're if you want to do exercise, and even if you can't stay at the gym for an hour, but if every day you walk for 10 minutes, that's the type of person you're going to become. You're gonna instead watch movies every night for, for 2 hours, and then that's the person you're going to become. You're not going to become that leader that you want to, like what you said before, Scott, that vision of what you want to see in the future. So
Yeah.
it just came to mind in terms of what you were saying.
Well, it's interesting because everything is rooted in your own self, right? If it's your self doubt, then you're going to be a doubtful person. You're not going to be reaching your potential. If you are a dreamer, all you're going to do is dream. So somewhere in between those two, right, is how do we take the dreamer and build them a clarity? How do we build them a strategy to go from where I am sitting on the couch doing nothing to this unbelievable life that they've always wanted to live, but they didn't know how to get there? And that's what we do, right? We're setting people up for success and we're giving them the tools necessary to go from step to step. And I like this concept I learned from somebody is my purpose in life as a trainer. She was saying, I want to move people from one bucket to the next, right? You're in this bucket today. Tomorrow you want to get to that bucket. How do I get you there? And that's really, if you think about conceptually, that's what we're doing with people. They are giving us the permission to enter into their world and change it ever so much that they can go from bucket to bucket. And the ultimate bucket is I want to live this amazing life where I have everything I've ever dreamt of. Well,
Yeah.
why would we ever want to govern that or bring that down when all we got to do is go from bucket one to bucket two? And then eventually you're in bucket 474,292 right now. Like, how cool is that? You've moved all these buckets. So I think this is really cool about your one part of your business, right? You're doing, and it hasn't been launched yet, but it will. The leadership piece, I love that part of it. Obviously, I could talk about it forever. Is there
Yeah.
something about the trials, tribulations, lessons you've learned over the course of these different businesses that you think would be another good share with the audience so they can get again a learning experience of, yeah, this is what I've experienced and she did it too.
Yeah. So I want to go back. I'm going to go back to what you said. I love the idea of the buckets of how am I, what you said, one of your clients said, how I'm going to move from one bucket, then from one
Mhm.
bucket to the next. And personally, my style and my perspective when I work with leaders, it's now how am I going to move you from one bucket to the next? How am I going to help you help yourself
Yeah.
move from one bucket to the next? And it's I think, just it just talks to different personalities, different in terms of self-empowerment, in terms of what level of support somebody needs at that point in their life. When it
Yeah,
comes
and
to,
to
yeah,
your point though, that's where the customization and connecting on that emotional level really come home. Is some people need a tremendous amount of support because they're in a stage of their development where I'm so insecure, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so you support them, and once
yeah,
they start getting more and more support or more confidence and comfort, the support changes from this unbelievable emotional support piece to all right, now we're more tactical and strategic in nature because now you're in a better mind space. And that's what's so cool about what we do because we see people go through this
yes.
whole arc of where they are and where they want to go. And it's interesting and so enlightening to watch people go through those light bulb moments where, oh, okay, I'm here. Great. Oh, now what? Like now they're eager, they want it, right? It's really
Yes.
cool. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was good. That was good. Thank you. So, in terms of a challenge, besides in terms of leadership, what I discussed before, making sure that you're getting the right support that actually talks to you, one of the other ideas, and whether that's someone that's currently working in a business or running a business in terms of leadership, is really recognizing of doing too much yourself
Hmm.
and being able to recognize what could be delegated. I'd like to call myself now the queen of delegation. I sometimes still struggle if did I delegate too much? What do I have to pull back and how to delegate it right with the correct boundaries? And it's always I have to take a step back for myself and take another look at it. But recognizing that as you want to build something and you want to make a bigger impact on more people and more organizations, is the effective leader is one that has those processes in place, has the clarity and vision in place. So they bring their team in and to help grow that. And then they know what they can work on, what they're working on and what they're focusing on for themselves. And I think that's something that is always it's always a constant, I want to say battle, but just like the clock always ticks. That's something that a
Hmm.
person as a leader they always need to work on. I talk to leaders and they're telling me something that they're working on. I'm like, why are you doing that?
Hmm.
And I know there's all these great clips of like, don't do something that you're going to pay someone, that you could pay someone $15 to do if you're the CEO. So I get that. But the part that I feel is not necessarily addressed enough is the mental and emotional struggle for a leader to let that go.
Hmm.
So, uh, you talk about you talk about the emotional part in terms of the relationship, right? In terms of a
Yep.
coach client, right? That which is so important. You have to be able to connect that way. But every leader needs to recognize not some, most of our behaviors are also in that same relationship. It's not with a person, but it's something that we built, something that we worked hard on. And
Yep.
can we let this go? And
Yeah.
if we let this go, is my world going to fall apart? Am I going to be okay? Is the business going to be okay? Right. So almost like doing that gradual release, going into the education where we do, in education, they have this thing where it goes, I do, we do, you do. Like the teacher teaches something and then we do it together as a class and then you do it on your own. So using that same framework, it's almost that same idea that every leader needs to do within their own organization when they're looking at how to delegate and being able then
Yeah.
to trust the people, right? Are we doing something together? Are you writing a process down? Is it clear what the outcome should be? And I could say
This is
one of the
all.
one of the pieces that to keep very clear is it clear that when something deviates, when it should come back to the leader? And so it has
Yeah.
to get the input of the leader instead of someone, maybe a manager or an office person making their own decision on what should happen. So being able to delegate in the most effective way is something that as much as I call myself the queen of delegation, I always have to take a step back and be like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I doing the most effective for what's good for the organization, for myself, and ultimately all for our clients? It's having the most impact.
100%. The delegation part or somebody's ability to delegate is not innate. It's not, oh, you were born with this amazing ability to be a delegator, right? You have to be learned. You have to teach yourself how to delegate. And if you don't have a proper system, what are you delegating? You're just moving the chaos from your bucket to somebody else's. Now that we're in this conversation about buckets, right? But all you're doing is moving the chaos around. But if you had a really structured system that handled everything in your business operations or at least how you flow through things, you could easily say to somebody, okay, this is now your responsibility, and they know exactly what to do. But if you don't have a process, you're simply moving chaos around, and that's not right. So I think that that's a really good piece, right?
I love what you said, moving the chaos around, because that's really what it feels like. And moving that chaos around, as I was building my business, I used this analogy with my team. So as I was building my business, I was having some people work part-time, some people stayed with us as we were growing, and then, as we build up the staff. And I remember at one point when I had to do a reflection, okay, what is it that I need for my staff so we could be most effective?
Yeah.
And when I was by myself as a solopreneur and I had an assistant, I looked at that assistant as like just doing things on my behalf, right? Like, making that phone call, sending that email, processing that piece of mail, that form was like fine. And I remember distinctly having this we had a team meeting, we're remote team, so I'm like literally on the screen like I am now. And I told my team, I said, till now I have this visual where it was like this was the business, and then I was handing out things like the top of the tree, and I was handing out things to everybody to get done, right? Like handing out the chaos, right? Like what you just said, Scott, like handing out the chaos. And when I realized we are at a turn of growth, I said, now I am now the trunk of the tree. The
Cool.
business is the trunk of the tree. The CEO is the trunk of the tree. And I'm telling this to all the listeners, you're the trunk of the tree. And each of you, I was telling my team, you are the branches that are now helping us grow. So you're taking over the CFO with the bookkeeper is taking over the financials. You are helping us
Yeah.
grow. You are running the programming in our schools. You are helping us grow. You are now helping that tree move much bigger.
Yeah.
And as a going from a small, literally like an entrepreneur with an assistant, with now with a team of people, thank God. And don't think that team of people just means that you have a big business. It just means more headache. But I always go with that
Wow.
concept of having bigger impact, right? That's really is something that I think could be helpful to anybody as they're growing their business. If you're growing your business and you didn't just walk into a CEO position or a leadership position or executive position, recognize you are that trunk. And as strong as you are as the trunk of the tree, that's how strong all the branches that are doing their functions are coming out. Project coordination, client management, whatever they may be doing, they're only as strong as the trunk of the tree because they're
Yeah.
branches of you. And that's how the company can expand. And if it's a strong trunk and a strong roots, you could go really, you could,
You do a lot more.
you
Yeah.
do a lot more. You could shade the whole block now that it's going to be spring, right? Those bigger trees with the bigger trunks are going to provide a lot more shade in the summer months.
It's a
So
great
using that.
analogy. It absolutely is a great analogy because the one point that you made, I think, is probably the most pointed that everybody needs to understand. The roots in the trunk, yes, that's the founder, that's the person that owns the business. And then every branch off of that is only doing its job to help you grow your business because the tree is planted. It's only going to go out, it's only going to go up as far as the branches will allow it to go. And if you, as an owner, don't allow those branches to be fed, they're not going to grow. So you have to feed your team and feed your tree. This is great. I can't believe it, Yocheved. We are 2 minutes away from the end of the conversation. It flew by. It flew by.
Been
So
a
I want to
pleasure.
thank you. I want to thank you for being on our show. Tons of great nuggets. All the information that anybody would need to get in touch with you will be in the description down below. So please click those links and get in touch. And we will see everybody on the next episode of Legacy Leaders. Thanks so much.